A Right to be Merry by Sister Mary Frances, a Poor Clare nun. Author's note: the names of cloistered nuns and postulants used in this book are fictitious. Nothing else is. Chapter 1, Beginnings. From the Testament of Saint Clare. And not only concerning ourselves did the most blessed Francis foretell these things, but also concerning those who were to come after us. End quote. The evening of November 7th, 1948, was a mild one for Chicago. We did not need the warmth of the choir mantles we were wearing in the hot glare of Dearborn Station at 9 p.m., and our long enclosure veils felt suddenly thick and furry. It was 4 years since the youngest nun in the group of 9 setting out for Roswell, New Mexico, had, quote, seen the world. And even to those who have never stopped seeing it, the world must seem a bit confusing at Dearborn Station. After the silence of our enclosure, the shouts and clangor were deafening. We clung closely to the parents, aunts, and uncles who had driven us to the station in a brave little procession of family cars. Then the Franciscan friars who had come to see us off began to take familiar shape out of the bright lights and din, and we smiled gratefully for the sense of security their presence gave us. It was fitting that the friars should be with us. At the invitation of His Excellency, Archbishop Byrne of Santa Fe, we had been appointed by His Eminence Cardinal Stritch to found a new monastery of the order in Roswell. That meant one more tiny shoot springing out of the 700-year-old tree, which St. Francis had planted the midnight of March 19th, 1212, when he invested lovely 18-year-old St. Clare with a gray habit, white cord, and black veil, and called her, quote, the first of my poor ladies. That night, in the mean little chapel of St. Mary of the Angels, the Order of the Poor Clares, as the poor ladies were called after the death of St. Clare, was born. St. Francis's eager little band of barefoot friars had crowded into the chapel, holding candles and singing, that midnight when Clare eloped from her castle home to become the first daughter of St. Francis and foundress of his second order. The friars at Dearborn Station, Chicago, in 1948 carried no candles and they did not sing. Yet the two scenes must surely have had similarities from heaven's vantage point. As the protective devotedness of the First Order encircled our little group of pioneers, the faces of Father Leander, Father Nicholas, Father Leopold, and the others became for me the faces of Leo, Giles, Rufino, and those other first companions of St. Francis back at St. Mary of the Angels, just outside Assisi. And Dearborn Station, Chicago, ceased to exist for me. It was reconstructed in the voice of my uncle saying in my ear, "It's time to get aboard, dear." We all came alive again. Our mothers, with the lunches their love and genius had labored over all that day. Our dads and uncles swinging our suitcases. Ourselves, with the feeling of strangeness taking possession again. Our hearts were turning toward unknown Roswell and unpredictable new beginnings. No one could shatter such a moment with a word. Then, Sister Anne dropped her sewing box. Now, the uninitiated might lightly suppose that a sewing box is a thing to be shoved in the bottom of a trunk when one is packing. A nun knows better. Her greatest material treasures are in that box. That very special fine black thread for darning enclosure veils, the just right weight and just right width ribbons for office books, the sandal needle for which she would brave fire and flood, some serge ravelings to mend her hand-me-down habit with an artistry that would make Da Vinci pale into significance. A sewing box is a thing to be clasped to one's heart. That is what Sister Anne was doing, only she dropped it. Strangers watched in fascination as 6 choir nuns and 3 extern sisters darted expertly after these treasures, retrieving the last special steel basting pin just in time to scramble onto the train again and wave unpoetic thimbles and darning eggs in farewell. This was our goodbye to Chicago, where all of us had entered, received the habit, made our vows, and fondly expected to die. It was the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the Order of St. Clare.